Appreciate everybody coming from long and near, some just over the hill and some all the way from Africa, and we appreciate that very much. And we hope everybody will come down to the house afterwards and sign a little book and have some refreshments and maybe share some memories of my mother. I didn't trust myself to remember what I wanted to say, so I wrote it down. It's not all that long, so don't panic. On 2 days before our mother died, she decided it was time to enter an extended care living facility. And she spent the day walking around the facility, inspecting the place, and greeting friends, including her oldest and best friend, Dot Gordon, who lived there already. And the next day, the day before she died, we went to her house early to help her get ready. But she'd had a rough night and she hadn't slept well. In fact, we hadn't been sleeping well for a long time. She was not in pain, but she was uncomfortable and she was restless. We came over to help her move, but she was in bed and was having trouble getting up. And eventually that day, her doctor came. And I don't know if it was a house call or a social visit, because he came and he spent probably an hour and he chatted with her and I think maybe he felt her heart or listened to her heart, but most of it was just chatting with her. And as she was getting ready to leave, she obviously felt better. And so she asked him, well, when can I get up and start using my stationary bike to get some exercise? I always feel better when I get some exercise. And that was, 12 or so hours before she died. The afternoon, later that evening, she was restless and couldn't get to sleep. And we stayed with her that night. And in the hours before she died, we would check on her, and one time I went in and she was up walking around her room, and she had set the alarm so that she could take her medicines at midnight, just like she always did. And she'd gotten herself up and was searching around the room for her medicines, and I got her back into bed, and she was calm and peaceful. And later, we went in and checked on her again, and I know Lotta spoke to her and corrected Lotta's grammar, as she always did. And she gave that shy, sweet smile that she did when she was telling you something, but she didn't want you to take offense. And I don't think Lotta did. And finally, the last thing she said to me before she died was she recited a poem. And my mother was many, many, many things. She was an athlete. She raced competitive sailboats. She skied into her 90s. She played tennis into her 80s. She climbed all the 4,000-foot mountains in the state of New Hampshire, I think after the age of 50 or something like that. She was a medical doctor during a time when that was a feat almost impossible for women to achieve. She was an ardent conservationist. And she was an environmentalist long before environmentalism became a popular cause. And she was a lover of these Tennessee mountains and her place in these mountains. And she was extremely tough. One of my enduring visions of her will be helping her down the stairs with her cane and the banister and the grit and determination on her face as her mind overcame her weakening legs, and she forced herself up and down the stairs. The one thing I never knew about my mother was that she was a lover of poetry. And I was totally surprised that the last thing she said to me was to quote a poem. And later, Chris told me that this was the poem that she wanted read today at her funeral. And Chris is now going to read that poem.
If I can. I wrote it big so I can see. Now is the hour when we must say goodbye. Soon I'll be sailing far across the sea. While I'm away, oh, remember me. Sunset glow fades in the west. Night o'er the valley is creeping. Birds cuddle down in their nest. Soon all the world will be sleeping. Now is the hour when we must say goodbye. Soon I'll be sailing far across the sea. While I'm away, remember me.
All done.
Well done.
All done.
I guess Kiki, you're gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kip is next.
Oh, Kip's gonna say.
Well, we have another poem. She touched many other people besides us, and this was written actually by a preacher in New Hampshire. And I guess Gail better read it.
Okay, all right. So the story of Catherine or Kay Murray touched many, many hearts, and people that we don't even know, people that she didn't even know. And so Chip and I would disappear regularly in New Hampshire when we were supposed to be back in New Hampshire. And so folks would say, including some pastors I was working with, where are you going? And I said, well, I got to go to Tennessee. And then a month later, well, I got to go to Tennessee. And after a while, they said, what is going on in Tennessee? And I said, well, my mother-in-law at age 95 is planting chestnut trees for the future. And so one preacher was so taken by the story of planting chestnut trees, about restoring the dying chestnut tree for future generations, that she said, can I tell Kay Murray's story or Catherine Murray's story at Easter time in church? And so she did. She wrote a sermon and a poem about Catherine Murray, and then she sent it to us afterwards. And she said, I was so taken by the story of your mother-in-law and the chestnut planting that I wanted to adapt it and use it on Easter as part of our glimpses of resurrection. And so on Easter morning, Kay's story was also turned into a poem. I hope she does not mind being part of our resurrection theme, but to me her actions so epitomize what we are called to live, planting the seeds of tomorrow, planting the seeds of harvest, leaning into hope, using our energy to bring about healing and restoration. Our poem for Kay and our poem to Kay is simple, but it was shared beautifully on Easter morning by a young college woman who imbued it with life and poignancy, a young woman who may herself grow to become someone like Catherine, full of life, full of resurrected hope and beauty, just like your mother-in-law. And then she says, this pastor says, I send this poem along to you with my love and gratitude. And the poem is titled Planting Chestnuts in Tennessee for Kay Murray. Imagine a grand tree, the kind you drew as a child, trunk thick, branches spread wide, full of fruit or flowers or nuts, the kind picnics happen under, the kind furniture makers treasure, the kind of tree that can live for 600 years and grow more than 100 feet tall. Imagine a forest of such trees. Imagine miles and miles of forests, stretching from Maine to Mississippi, rooted, vibrant, swaying in the wind, providing beauty, shelter, nuts, and wood for more than 5,000 years. But then imagine those trees dying, blight spreading and killing them in just 50 years. But imagine a few groups of scientists trying to breed new life from the few surviving trees, working for decades, trying and trying to get it right. Imagine the beginnings of new, hardy chestnut trees. And here you are, Catherine, at the end of a long life, imagining being part of bringing about this new life to our beloved chestnut. Standing up, Catherine, from this imagine and packing your bags for a journey to Tennessee. An early New Hampshire start, chill in the air. Your body has its aches and its pains of age, but your body and your mind are filled even more with anticipation, climbing into the car for a tree planting road trip to your beloved Tennessee. Let's go, Catherine says. And so let's go, and let us all treasure everything that Catherine treasured about this wonderful place and these wonderful people that are very much a part of her life and a part of her spirit forever.
Amen. I'd like to read a poem called The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone, the beginning and the end. He noted the first was the date of birth, and last was spoke with tears, but he said what really mattered most was the dash between those years. That dash represents all the time that was spent alive on earth, and now only those who knew the friend really know what that dash was worth. It matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters most is how we live and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things in your life to change? You never know how much time is left. That can still be rearranged. When your eulogy's finally read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash?
I think we have some other people that have said they want to say something. This is John Tilson.
The third.
The third. Not the first or the second, but the third. And
well, when one comes back to a place where one's father is buried, grandfather, great-grandfather, going all the way back to 1850 when the Tilsons first came here, there's a swirl of thoughts that go through, and they go beyond Kay, and I think Kay would forgive me for that, but I think she would, in some sense, sort of welcome that. I have two thoughts in the middle of all this swirl. One is how much she would, if she were looking down, feel so happy about this gathering. The gathering really, the family started a few days ago to see people that had never been to Tennessee in the family come for the first time, to see the kids playing in the little river, petting the donkey, all of that sort of thing. To hear the neighbor friends have come and prepared the cemetery and to clean it up. I brought a bag yesterday because we thought we would make do the same thing. There wasn't anything put in the bag. And to think how unusual it is in this day and age when people move from city to city, thousands of miles, to have the ties that she had to two geographical places. And many of us have the same ties that goes back to 1850 here and then the New Hampshire part. And as much tie as she had to New Hampshire, there was never any doubt that she would be buried here. She told her children that she wanted to look out from this hilltop down into the valley. The other thought was that, and this goes in keeping with what Kiki said about the dash, and I'll go back and talk about her father first. In 1954, at age almost 90, he sat down and wrote a family history book. A lot of it was in his mind, but it was a scholarly piece too. And we think of what that would have been, what would have been lost if he, in his final years, had not put this together to trace the history of the family and his own history. But he made that effort in his closing years to do that. And here we are, the next generation down, and Kay made the same effort to make sure something wasn't lost. She took the lead, even though my father and their sister were willing participants in this, to put this in Nature Conservancy so it wouldn't be lost. Without her, maybe it wouldn't have gotten done. And then 10 years later, she's still trying to make it happen, to make it into a homestead where it's preserved from development for life, where family members and friends can come and visit forever. And that's very much in keeping with what Kiki said. So I shared, I'm 75, so I can remember 65 years of sharing with her in New Hampshire, and it's funny that we would come down to what I remember most, and most grateful for is in our closing years, she made this possible for all of us.
Tommy, were you going to say? I got the word.
I didn't really prepared anything, but I do want to say here, it's wonderful that all of her children and descendants are here. For her, in many ways, she was sort of a second mother to me. We spent our times up in New Hampshire, and I was there in the summer, and I remember, I think as a 7-year-old, on the old ski slopes where you used to have a rope you'd have to hang on to. It was slippery and wet and cold, and between her legs, you know, she would take me up to the bunny slope. And I think she also helped me the first time learn how to swim at about age 7 also, to get out to the raft and so forth. So to be able to follow for that time, I'm 71, I was 7 then, all the way up to the present has just been a fortunate experience for me to know her all of these years. And I wouldn't miss it. We came back from Africa just to attend this, and just so delighted that we did so.
Thank you. Sue Venable, Dot Gordon's daughter, and her oldest, Dot was her oldest and best friend.
Yes, I just want to say that I too have known Kay all my life, and I'm about to be 70, and she was just a marvelous, marvelous role model for all of us. From the time when in the summers, we would hike with her, we learned so much. So Kay, for her name, stands for knowledgeable. She knew so much, and we learned so much from her. And A, the second letter of K, stands for awesome and also adventurous. She took us on so many wonderful, wonderful adventures, and she was awesome, that's all I can say. And finally, the Y, I would say that she was a yarn maven extraordinaire. She knit and made beautiful things for all of us, her family, her friends, her dogs, her cats, etc. But we will never forget Kay. She was my mother's oldest, dearest friend, and the rest of the family all wishes they could have been here too, because she was so special to each and every one of us.
Mandy, did you want to say something?
Sure. I just wanted to say a couple of words about how grateful I am for all of the memories of all of the time that I spent with my grandmother and all of the things that she did with us. I have wonderful memories of hiking with her all over New Hampshire, of spending time preparing meals on wheels with her, something that was a very important cause, of just spending time with her at our house by the lake in Sunapee, New Hampshire. And I have a couple particular thoughts about this. One is that some of the memories that stand in my mind the clearest are the ones that happened recently, particularly after she hurt her hip. And I just remember how much she wanted to keep walking around our property in New Hampshire. I remember one time taking her out to Stony Point after she had hurt her hip, and I think everyone thought it was a terrible idea, but she really wanted to walk out to Stony Point, and she did. And she really wanted to, keep walking along the trail that she maintained around the bog, and she did. And so one of the things I think about my grandmother is just how much you can accomplish if you refuse to give up. I mean, she, after times of her life when, no one could have blamed her for sitting in a rocking chair for the rest of her life, she just kept going and going, and it's as a result of that determination, partially, that I have so many, wonderful memories of doing things with her as an adult. And the other thing that I was thinking about today is how grateful I am for her, even for the things that I didn't do directly with her, but for sort of the memories that I have vicariously through my mother and my other relatives. I don't remember camping much with my grandmother, but I'm so grateful that she took you all camping so that, so that my mother could take me camping, so that I could grow up also with those, those experiences and values, some of which came directly to me and some of which came through all of you. And I think about how much, how much her drive and how much her values, shaped all of us really, directly and indirectly. I think we should all be very grateful for that.
I'm an outlaw. That means an in-law. And I want to tell you how wonderful it was that Aunt Kay, first of all, accepted me. I was from another part of the United States. I didn't ski at the time, and that was tough. But in any case, she was wonderful throughout her life, and I've been around for 50 years with Aunt Kay. Wabeeta is her nickname, and I just can't believe she's gone, and we miss her greatly.
Is there anyone else that?
Like Penny, I feel like I know exactly what Wabeeta would say if she were here today to all of us, which would be, thank you for coming, but I don't understand why you had to make such a production. And I feel very lucky that despite being one of the youngest grandchildren, and one of the people here perhaps who's known her the least, that I got to know her that well. And I feel very humble to be descended from somebody who accomplished such great things and was so well loved by all of us. And I feel incredibly humbled by how tough a person she was, but also how generous a person she was. And when I was growing up in Sunapee, board games have always been a big part of life at Timberloft. And when we left our board games sitting out with the pieces on the floor, Wabeeta would take them and she'd hide them underneath her bed. And you couldn't get it back until you went and you looked Wabeeta in the eyes and you said that you were sorry, that you'd messed up, and that it wouldn't happen again. And I'll think of her often going forward, and I'll often think of when I take an action or I do a thing, could I look Wabeeta in the eyes and could I say that I was sorry, but I'd never do it again. And I'll remember her fondly, and she will be missed.
Anyone else? I guess we're gonna place her ashes in her sewing box in the hole, and then maybe the family will stay here for a second, and then the rest of you go on down to the house, and we'll be there in just a second.
Where's Ripley? I don't want to be maudlin, but her best friend at the end was Ripley. Right back there. Ripley, come on. Come on.
That was her dog too.
That was her dog. They spent every day together for a long, long time. He took care of her, and she took care of him. He misses her. Ripley, come. Where is it?
Right here behind you.
Keep watching.
We're going to drag this thing up here. Everybody get their hands dirty.
Oh. Anybody want to put a shovel on?
Yeah.
Put some dirt on.
That's like some of the little ones. Put some dirt on. You want to? I'm not saying.
Do you want to use this? And I think that was the clearing shower.
Yeah. James and Julia from California.
Sammy from
Virginia.
Ellie from Colorado.
Go on.
Granddaughter Ellie.
Go together.
Great granddaughter. Excuse me, my granddaughter.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Emily from New York. Catherine from New York. What? Juliana from Oregon. Oregon. Marguerite. Maryland.
Like stocking.
Yeah, should we?
Let me keep you back on the stage.
Marguerite.
Marguerite, you ruined this.
Alex from California. James from California.
James already did
Oh,
it.
James already did it right. Charlotte from California.
Aren't you gonna?
Oh, yeah.
Daryl from New York. Whitney from New York. Nada from Oregon. Dana from, where are you from? Africa, someplace. Kenya. Susan from New York. Rachel and company from Virginia.
This big Phyllis right here.
John Key the third from Oregon. Ned from Chicago, Illinois right now. Deborah from California. Penny. Penny from Connecticut.
Where did she come from?
Penny.
She was just arrived.
Kelsey.
Penny.
Kelsey Quillen. Carolyn from Colorado. Manny from New York. Family is spread all over. Susie from Kenya. Kenya, Africa. Ethan from Colorado. And Charlotte. Baby Charlotte. Joseph from Maryland. Lada from Tilson Mountain, by way of Sweden. Megan from New York. Tabitha from New York. Kenny from Tilson Mountain. Kiki from New Hampshire. Kip from New Hampshire. Dan from New Hampshire.
Phyllis, you need help, Phyllis?
Which one? Phyllis from New Hampshire. Annie Pan.
From the rock.
She's the only person I know has a rock named after her. And from New Jersey.
Right.
Gail from New Hampshire. Sue and Jean from New Hampshire. Who else has come a long way?
Yeah, get a picture of that.
Dot, get a picture for Dot of them doing that. And Charmian.
Anybody else? Chris and Tom from New Hampshire.
Well, this is mine. You can do your own.
Yeah, well, your mother taught you that.
Tommy from Africa. Well, thank you all very much for coming, and please come down. There's a ton of food down there, and we would love to get a chance to chat with people individually, and thank you personally. Everybody go that way.